The stars had watched over the galaxy for millions of years. 12 great alien races controlled everything they could see. They called themselves the Galactic Concordat. Each race was old and wise. Each had learned to rule their part of space with careful hands. They were the first to find the small blue world spinning around a yellow star. Their ships moved through space like silent ghosts. They had technology that could see through planets and read the thoughts of creatures from far away. When they looked at Earth, they saw something new. Billions of creatures walked on two legs. They built cities that stretched across continents. They fought wars with weapons that could destroy entire regions. They had just learned to travel faster than light. They watched these humans for many months. "They are young," said High Observer to his council, "too young to understand the rules of space." They shared their findings with the other 11 races. The Meridians sent their best scientists to study human behavior. They used their mind-reading abilities to understand human thoughts. They tested human technology with invisible probes. All 12 races agreed on one thing: humans were dangerous. Captain Sarah Martinez was 28 years old when she first stepped onto the dead moon. She commanded a small exploration ship called the Pioneer. Her crew of 12 humans had been traveling for 6 months to reach this empty system. They thought no one lived here. The moon looked like a gray rock floating in black space. It had no air and no water. Ancient craters covered its surface like scars. Sarah and her team wore thick suits to protect them from the cold and radiation. "Scan the surface," Sarah told her science officer. "Look for any useful materials." They found something much more important than materials. Deep underground, their machines detected strange structures. The patterns looked too perfect to be natural. Someone had built something here long ago. "Captain," said Dr. James, the team scientist, "these readings are incredible. There's a whole complex down there. It might be millions of years old." Sarah made the decision that would doom her entire species. "Prepare the drilling equipment. We're going down." The complex stretched for miles under the moon's surface. Beautiful crystal formations covered the walls. Strange symbols were carved into black stone. Everything glowed with soft blue light that had no obvious source. The humans recorded everything with their cameras and sensors. They had no way of knowing they were walking through the most sacred burial site of the race. Every crystal held the preserved consciousness of an elder who had died over the last million years. Every symbol was a prayer for the dead. The blue light came from spiritual energy that they believed connected their ancestors to the living world. When Sarah's team collected samples of the crystals, alarms screamed across every ship in the galaxy. Their most holy site had been violated by primitive aliens who understood nothing. 3 days later, every major leader in the Galactic Concordat received the same message. The tribunal would meet to decide the fate of humanity. The tribunal had existed for 2 million years. It was a court that judged entire species. The 12 races sent their members to serve as judges. They met in a massive station built from materials harder than diamond. The station floated in the dark space between galaxies where no stars could blind their judgment. High Judge was 10,000 years old. She had lived through the rise and fall of hundreds of civilizations. Her voice carried the weight of absolute authority when she spoke to the assembled races. "We have gathered to judge the species called humans," she announced. "They have violated sacred ground. They have shown disrespect for the dead. They have proven themselves unworthy of galactic citizenship." The evidence against humanity filled the air as holographic displays. Images showed human wars, pollution, and violence. Videos revealed how humans treated their own planet with carelessness. Reports detailed the violation of the burial ground. Defense Advocate was the only voice that spoke for humanity. He was young for his species, only 500 years old. He had spent months studying human culture and behavior. Honorable judges said, "Humans are young and primitive. They do not understand our ways. They meant no disrespect. They were exploring like children who do not know better. "Children who can destroy planets with their weapons," replied Judge of the. "Children who poison their own world with waste. Children who kill their own kind for resources and territory." "Humans have shown us what they are," added Judge of the Meridians. "They are a contaminating species. They spread chaos wherever they go. They learn only through violence." The debate lasted 3 days, presented evidence of human art, music, and philosophy. He showed examples of human kindness and sacrifice. He argued that humans could learn to be better if given the chance. The other judges showed images of human weapons. They played recordings of human leaders threatening war. They demonstrated how human expansion could threaten galactic peace. On the 3rd day, High Judge called for the final vote. Each of the 12 races had 1 vote. Each vote would determine whether humanity lived or died. The vote was 11-1. Only people voted to spare humanity. The others chose death. "The sentence is complete sterilization," announced. "All humans must be removed from the galaxy. All human worlds must be cleansed. This contamination will not spread further." The execution began immediately. Concordat fleets moved toward human space with weapons that could crack planets in half. They carried bombs that could burn away entire atmospheres. They brought tools that could erase every trace of human civilization. Admiral commanded the main assault fleet. He was a professional who took no pleasure in destruction, but he followed orders with perfect precision. His ships surrounded Earth while smaller fleets moved toward the 47 human colonies scattered across nearby star systems. The humans never had a chance to surrender. They never received a warning or explanation. The attack came like lightning from clear skies. Orbital bombardment platforms reduced Earth to liquid fire. Colony worlds died under streams of superheated plasma. Space stations exploded like fireworks against the black void. In 6 hours, 8.2 billion humans were dead. Earth became a ball of molten rock. Every human city, every human monument, every human dream turned to ash and vapor. The Concordat fleets completed their work and returned to their home systems. Their records were updated with a simple entry: Sanitation Protocol 847 completed successfully. Human contamination eliminated. But records can be wrong. 3 generation ships had already left human space before the attack began. They carried 2.3 million humans toward distant galaxies that the Concordat had never bothered to explore. The seeds of humanity's future traveled through the dark between stars, carrying something the Tribunal had never expected. They carried the memory of 8.2 billion dead, and the burning need for justice that would reshape the galaxy forever. 57 years passed in the cold darkness between galaxies. 3 massive ships carried the last humans through empty space toward a distant cluster of stars. The ships were cities in themselves. Each one held almost 1 million people living in metal corridors that stretched for miles. Commander had never seen Earth. She was born on the generation ship New Horizon 23 years after it left human space. Her parents told her stories about blue skies and green forests. They described ocean so wide you could not see the other side. They spoke of cities that gleamed like jewels under a warm yellow sun. All of it was gone now. All of it existed only in memories and old videos. Stood in the observation deck of New Horizon, watching the Andromeda spiral grow larger ahead of them. The galaxy looked like a wheel of light spinning slowly in the void. It was smaller than the Milky Way, but it held millions of star systems that no human had ever seen. "We will arrive in 6 months," reported Chief Navigator David Park. He was old enough to remember the escape from human space. His face carried the weight of those memories. Long-range scans show the outer rim systems are mostly empty. The Concordat barely explores this galaxy. Good said, "We need time to prepare." The 3 ships entered Andromeda like ghosts. They avoided any system with signs of alien activity. The Concordat had built a few research stations in this galaxy, but they were scattered and small. Most of Andromeda was marked as strategically worthless in their databases. The humans found what they needed on dead worlds that the Concordat had dismissed: rocky planets with no atmosphere, frozen moons around gas giants, asteroid fields rich with rare metals, places where they could build without being noticed. Chose a planet orbiting a red dwarf star. The world was cold and airless, but it had vast underground cave systems. The humans called it Haven. They landed their ships and began the work of building a new civilization. The work was hard and dangerous. People died in mining accidents and equipment failures. Children were born in underground chambers that never felt sunlight, but everyone understood what they were working toward. They were not building homes. They were building weapons. Dr. Sarah led the science teams. She had been a young researcher when Earth died. Now she was the most brilliant mind among the survivors. Her laboratory stretched through miles of caves beneath Haven's surface. "We cannot fight them with normal weapons," Sarah explained during one of their planning meetings. "The Concordat has technology millions of years ahead of ours. We need to think differently." Sarah's teams worked on projects that would have seemed impossible to the humans who died with Earth. They learned to transfer human consciousness into quantum storage devices. They developed biological organisms that could change the chemistry of entire planets in decades instead of millions of years. They studied dark matter and learned to manipulate the invisible forces that held galaxies together. But their greatest achievement was something they called the Memory Project. Every human who died during the journey between galaxies had their brain patterns recorded before death. Every survivor shared their complete genetic code with the central computers. The humans built a database that contained the thoughts, memories, and DNA of their entire species. "We are more than just the people who survived," announced to the growing population of Haven. "We carry everyone who ever lived. We remember every human who died when Earth burned. They live in us. They guide us. They demand justice." The 3 generation ships were broken apart and rebuilt into something new. Their metal became the foundation of massive manufacturing facilities. Their engines were converted into power generators that could light entire continents. Their computers became the minds of artificial intelligences that could think faster than any human brain. 20 years passed. The human population in Andromeda grew from 2 million to 5 million. Most were children born in the underground cities. They grew up knowing only one purpose. They would return to the Milky Way. They would make the Concordat pay for what it had done. Was now the elected leader of all human settlements in Andromeda. She had married David Park and raised 3 children in the tunnels beneath Haven. But her most important relationship was with the artificial intelligence they called the Archive. The Archive contained the preserved consciousness of every human who had ever lived, could speak with digital copies of her grandparents who had died on Earth. She could ask advice from great leaders and scientists from human history. Most importantly, she could hear the voices of the 8.2 billion dead demanding justice. "The time has come," the Archive told during one of their daily conversations. "Our scouts report that Concordat activity in the outer rim is increasing. They will find us soon if we do not act first." Nodded, she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. Begin the final phase. The humans had spent decades learning about Concordat technology. Their spy probes had infiltrated alien computer networks. They had studied every Concordat ship design and weapon system. They knew the locations of every important Concordat world and military base. But knowledge was not enough. They needed to become something the Concordat could never expect or understand. The transformation began with volunteers, was among the first to undergo the process. She lay on a medical table while nanoscopic machines rewrote her DNA. Her bones became stronger than steel. Her brain was enhanced with quantum processors that could think at superhuman speeds. Her body was modified to survive in any environment. The process was not just physical. Consciousness was linked directly to the archive. She could access the memories and knowledge of every human who had ever lived. She became more than. She became the voice of humanity itself. Thousands of volunteers followed her example. They became the first generation of enhanced humans. Some were modified for space combat, able to survive in the vacuum between stars. Others were designed for planetary warfare, strong enough to fight in crushing gravity or toxic atmospheres. All of them carried the same burning purpose. The weapons they built were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Ships that could phase in and out of normal spacetime. Biological viruses that could rewrite the genetic code of entire species. Dark matter bombs that could make stars collapse into black holes. But their most powerful weapon was something simpler. It was the memory of home, the knowledge of what they had lost, the absolute certainty that they were fighting for the dead who could not fight for themselves. Stood in the command center of their main battle station. Around her, displays showed the locations of every Concordat world and fleet. The humans had built an army that could strike anywhere in the galaxy without warning. They had technology that made the Concordats' ancient wisdom look like the toys of children. Begin reconnaissance operations, ordered. Find their weak points, study their defenses, learn everything about how they live and what they fear. The first human ships slipped across the void between galaxies. They were invisible to Concordat sensors and carried no identification. To anyone who detected them, they would look like natural phenomena or equipment malfunctions. But they were the seeds of something that would burn across the galaxy like wildfire. They carried the fury of the dead and the technology to make that fury real. The Concordat had forgotten about humanity. They believed their problem was solved. They had no idea that their greatest mistake was about to return home. The first signs of trouble appeared in the outer rim systems of the Milky Way. Admiral of the Meridian Navy received strange reports from his patrol fleets. Ships were disappearing without sending distress signals. Entire squadrons would vanish between one scheduled check-in and the next. "Show me the pattern," demanded from his flagship's command center. His officers displayed a holographic map of the galaxy's edge. Red markers showed where ships had vanished over the past 6 months. "There is no pattern, Admiral," reported his intelligence officer. "The disappearances seem random. No evidence of battle damage, no debris fields. The ships simply stop responding to communications." Studied the display with growing concern. In his 400 years of service, he had never seen anything like this. Pirates left wreckage. Rebels made demands. Equipment failures produced debris and emergency beacons. This was something else entirely. The second wave of incidents was even more disturbing. 3 mining colonies in remote systems reported the same impossible event. Their planet's atmospheres had changed overnight. Worlds that had been toxic to most life suddenly supported oxygen-breathing creatures. The chemical composition of their air had been completely rewritten in less than 12 hours. Doctor received the reports at his research station in the Vega system. He had spent the decade since the human extinction studying primitive civilizations. The work helped him forget his failure to save humanity from the tribunal's judgment. "This is scientifically impossible," told his assistant while reviewing the atmospheric data. "Terraforming takes millions of years. Even our most advanced technology requires centuries to change a planet's environment." His assistant, a young named, pulled up additional files. "There are also these surface markings, Doctor. They appear on every changed world." The images made blood freeze. Carved into the surface of each transformed planet were symbols, not alien writing or natural formations. Human letters and numbers, coordinates, dates, names. Recognized them immediately. They were the locations and dates of human colony worlds. The names were human settlements that had been destroyed during Sanitation Protocol 847. "Get me a secure communication line to the tribunal immediately," ordered. "We have a serious problem." The emergency session of the tribunal convened within days. All 12 races sent their highest-ranking officials. The same chamber that had condemned humanity 57 years earlier now faced evidence that their sentence had failed. High Judge looked older than her 10,000 years as she reviewed the reports. "Explain to this tribunal how dead species can terraform planets," defense advocate. "Honorable judges, I believe we made an error in our original assessment," replied. "Our records show that 3 human generation ships left their space before our fleets arrived. We assumed they would die in the void between galaxies. We were wrong." The judges shifted uneasily in their seats. Judge of the Meridian spoke first. "Even if some humans survived, they were primitive. How could they develop technology that surpasses our own?" "Pain can be a powerful teacher," said quietly. "We gave them the greatest possible motivation to evolve." Before anyone could respond, alarms began screaming throughout the tribunal station. The massive structure shook as emergency protocols activated. Blast barriers slammed shut across the chamber's viewing ports. Reports demanded. "Unknown contacts detected throughout the galaxy," announced the station's artificial intelligence. "Hundreds of ships appearing simultaneously across all major systems. Technology signatures are unrecognized." The viewing ports reopened to reveal something that should have been impossible. Ships hung in space around the tribunal station. They were clearly artificial, but their design followed no known pattern. They seemed to shift and blur as if they existed partially outside normal space-time. One ship moved closer to the station. It was massive, easily the size of a Concordat dreadnought, but its hull appeared to be made of some kind of living metal that pulsed with blue light. A communication signal reached the station. When it activated, the voice that spoke was human, but it carried harmonics that suggested multiple speakers talking in perfect unison. "Members of the Galactic Concordat," the voice said. "We are the children of those you murdered 57 years ago. We have returned to collect what you owe us." The image that appeared on the main screen showed a human woman, but she was clearly different from the primitive creatures the Concordat had studied decades earlier. Her eyes held depths that seemed to contain galaxies. Her skin had a faint luminescent quality. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of absolute authority. "I am speaking for the 8.2 billion human souls you erased from existence. We have come home to teach you the meaning of consequence." High Judge found her voice. "Impossible. Our fleets confirmed complete sterilization. All human worlds were destroyed. All human populations eliminated." "Your records were incomplete," replied. "You killed the humans who lived on planets. You missed the ones who lived among the stars. We have spent 57 years learning from your example. You taught us that mercy is weakness. You showed us that survival requires absolute commitment. We are excellent students." The display shifted to show images from across the galaxy. Concordat worlds were reporting atmospheric changes. Military installations were finding their weapons systems completely inoperative. Trade routes were being systematically blocked by ships that appeared and vanished without explanation. "What do you want?" demanded Judge of the Justice answered. "Each of your 12 races will experience exactly what you gave to humanity. Your home worlds will burn. Your colonies will be sterilized. Your people will know the fear of extinction." "We have the largest military force in galactic history," Admiral interjected from his ship's communication link. "You cannot threaten the combined might of 12 civilizations." His expression did not change, but something like amusement flickered in her eyes. "Admiral, would you please check your weapon systems?" Across the galaxy, Concordat ships discovered the same horrifying truth. Their weapons would not fire. Their shields would not activate. Their engines responded to commands, but their targeting computers and defensive systems had been completely disabled. Hal whispered, "We learned your technology while you forgot we existed," explained. "Our scientists spent decades studying your ships and computers. We know your systems better than you do. Every ship you built in the last 50 years contains components we influenced. Every weapon you forged includes materials we provided through shell corporations. You have been fighting with tools we designed for you." Doctor stepped forward. "There must be another way. Surely we can find a peaceful solution. More death will not bring back the humans who died." Turned her attention to him. For a moment, her enhanced features softened slightly. "Advocate, you spoke for us when no one else would. You alone argued for mercy. Your people will be given a choice the others will not receive." "What choice?" "Evolution or extinction. We will change your people to survive in the galaxy we are creating, or they can die as they are. But the galaxy you knew is ending today." The transmission ended, leaving the tribunal in stunned silence. Around them, reports flooded in from across Concordat space. Human ships were appearing at every major world. The transformation of the galaxy had begun. Stared at the empty screen where his image had been. In his mind, he heard the words he had spoken to the tribunal 57 years ago. He had warned them that humans were young and could learn to be better if given the chance. He had been right about humans learning. He had been wrong about what they would choose to become. The galaxy's oldest civilizations faced something they had never experienced in millions of years of expansion and conquest. They faced an enemy that was not trying to defeat them or rule them. They faced an enemy that wanted to replace them entirely. The long sleep of human vengeance was ending. The burning of the galaxy was about to begin. And somewhere in the data streams connecting human ships across space, the preserved consciousness of 8.2 billion dead humans whispered their approval. Justice had finally come home. The transformation of the began at dawn on the planet's largest continent. Stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching as millions of microscopic organisms rained down from the sky like silver dust. "Target acquired," reported her science officer, Doctor. He had been born in the tunnels beneath Haven and trained his entire life for this moment. "Atmospheric conversion proceeding as planned. The sacred burial grounds are our primary focus." Nodded. The irony was perfect. They had condemned humanity for disturbing their ancestral resting place. Now that same location would become something entirely different. The silver organisms were more than just terraforming tools. They carried human DNA in microscopic capsules. Every grain of dust contained the genetic pattern of one of the 8.2 billion humans who had died during the Concordat's sterilization protocol. As the organisms spread across the world, they began their work. The crystal formations that held consciousness were dissolved and replaced with new structures. The blue spiritual energy that connected the living to the dead was redirected into patterns that human minds could understand and use. Most importantly, the soil itself was changed. Every particle now contained active human genetic material. The planet was becoming a living memorial where human DNA would survive until the stars burned out. "The fleet is attempting to evacuate their population," reported Commander Sarah from her position on the tactical display. "Should we stop them?" "No," replied. "Let them watch. Let them understand what we are doing to their most sacred place." The evacuation ships carried millions of refugees away from there, but they could not escape what was happening behind them. Their planet, the spiritual center of their entire civilization, was being transformed into something that honored human dead instead of ancestors. Admiral, who had led the attack on Earth 57 years earlier, watched from his command ship as his own suffered the same fate. The Meridian capital was a planet of vast floating cities connected by streams of energy. It had stood unchanged for millions of years. Human ships surrounded the world like predators circling prey. They released clouds of nanoscopic machines that infiltrated every system on the planet. The floating cities began to descend toward the surface, their anti-gravity systems failing one by one. But the humans did not destroy the cities. Instead, they changed them. The graceful towers became monuments carved with human names. The energy streams that connected the structures now carried information about human history and culture. The Meridians found their own buildings teaching alien children about Earth's blue skies and lost oceans. "Why," Admiral demanded when accepted his communication request, "why do you not simply kill us? Why this transformation?" His image appeared on his screen. Behind her, holographic displays showed the progress of human operations across the galaxy. 12 worlds were being simultaneously converted. 12 civilizations were learning what it felt like to lose everything they considered sacred. "Death would be mercy," explained. "Death would allow you to escape the consequences of your actions. We are not here to grant mercy. We are here to ensure you live with what you have done." They were the third race to feel human justice. Their world was covered with vast mental networks where billions of minds connected in permanent telepathic union. The shared thoughts and emotions across their entire species. They believed this made them superior to races that lived as individuals. The human attack on their world was unlike anything they could have imagined. Instead of destroying their mental networks, the humans added new connections. Suddenly, every mind was linked not just to their own people, but to the preserved consciousness of dead humans. Billions of experienced the terror and pain of Earth's destruction. They felt what it was like to watch their world burn under orbital bombardment. They lived through the deaths of 8.2 billion individuals, experiencing each death as if it were their own. The mental trauma was so intense that most fell into deep comas. Those who remained conscious begged for the connections to be severed, but the humans had made the neural links permanent. They would spend the rest of their existence sharing the memories of their victims. Each of the 12 Concordat races faced a different form of justice. The who prided themselves on their perfect technology found their machines replaced with devices that only functioned when programmed in human languages. The who lived as energy beings in crystal lattices discovered their homes converted into monuments that displayed the names of every human who had died. The pattern was always the same. The humans did not destroy or conquer. They transformed. They forced each race to confront the reality of what they had done to humanity. Doctors' people, though, were offered the choice had promised. They could submit to enhancement procedures that would allow them to survive in the galaxy the humans were creating, or they could face extinction like the others. Was among the first to volunteer for the enhancement process. He lay on a medical table aboard a human ship while herself supervised the procedure. "This will change you completely," warned. "You will still be, but you will also be something new. Part human, part. You will carry the memories of both species." "I understand," replied. "I failed to save humanity from the tribunal. Perhaps I can save my own people from the consequences of that failure." The transformation took days. Nanoscopic machines rewrote genetic code while quantum computers restructured his consciousness. When he awoke, he could feel the presence of human thoughts alongside his own. He carried the memories of humans who had died on Earth, but also the knowledge of who had lived for thousands of years. He was no longer purely human. He was something new, something that belonged to the galaxy was creating. "Welcome to the future," said when opened his enhanced eyes. "Your people can join you willingly, or we will convert them by force. But the old galaxy is gone. We are building something new from its ashes." Across space, the conversion continued. Human fleets moved from system to system with the precision of a clockwork mechanism. Every Concordat world faced the same choice: transformation or destruction. Most chose transformation. Better to live as something new than to die defending something old. The humans offered survival, but only on their terms. Alien races could keep their cultures, their languages, their basic identities. But they would also carry human DNA, human memories, and human values programmed into their genetic code. They would become hybrids who understood both sides of the great conflict. Admiral commanded the human fleet attacking the Concordat's central government world. She was successor, trained from birth to lead humanity's military forces. Her ships surrounded the massive artificial planet where the tribunal met. "Broadcast this message on all frequencies," ordered her communications officer. "Let every species in the galaxy hear it." Her transmission reached billions of beings across thousands of worlds. Her words carried the weight of absolute authority and the fury of the wronged dead. "Citizens of the galaxy," announced. 57 years ago, your leaders decided that humanity was unworthy of life. They killed 8.2 billion innocent people for the crime of being different. Today, we complete our response to that judgment. The images that accompanied her words showed the transformation of each Concordat. Ancient civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years were being converted into something new. Something that honored human dead instead of alien glory. "You taught us that might makes right," continued. "You showed us that advanced species can erase primitive ones without consequence. You believed that power gives the right to commit genocide. Today, you learn the final lesson we have to offer." She paused, allowing her words to sink in across the galaxy. "Power belongs to those who survive to use it. We survived. We learned. We returned. The galaxy that killed humanity is dead. In its place, we offer something better. A galaxy where human and alien can exist together, changed by each other, stronger than either could be alone." The tribunal's artificial world surrendered without firing a shot. Its weapons were useless against technology that could rewrite matter at the quantum level. Its leaders faced the same choice as everyone else: evolution or extinction. Most chose evolution. They submitted to transformation procedures that would make them part of this new galaxy. They would live, but they would never again be what they had been before. The burning had begun, not the fire of destruction, but the flame of rebirth. The galaxy was being forged anew in the image of humanity's vision. And in the deepest archives of every human ship, the voices of 8.2 billion dead whispered their approval. Justice was finally being served. 20 years had passed since the day declared war on the old galaxy. Now she stood in the Memorial Hall of New Terra, the capital world built in the exact spot where Earth had once orbited its yellow sun. The hall stretched for miles beneath the planet's surface. Its walls contained 8.2 billion names carved in stone that would never erode. Each name glowed with soft blue light, powered by the life force of the hybrid civilization that had grown from humanity's ashes. Was old now, though her enhanced genetics kept her looking much younger than her 78 years. Her hair had gone silver, but her eyes still held the fire that had burned the galaxy and rebuilt it in humanity's image. "President," said her aide, a young hybrid named, carried both human and genes. Her skin had the luminescent quality of her alien heritage, but her mind thought with human determination. "The council is ready for your address." Nodded and walked toward the great assembly chamber above the memorial hall. As she moved through the corridors of New Terra, she saw the galaxy's future in the faces around her. Children played in parks where both human and alien flowers bloomed side by side. Scientists worked in laboratories where enhanced humans shared ideas with transformed meridians. Artists created sculptures that honored both Earth's lost beauty and the ancient wisdom of a dozen alien races. This was the galaxy she had built, not conquered, not destroyed, transformed into something new. The council chamber was vast enough to hold representatives from every settled world in the galaxy. Thousands of beings filled the seats, but they were not the same species that had once ruled through the Concordat. They were something new, something that carried the best aspects of both human and alien heritage. Walked to the center of the chamber and activated the holographic display that would carry her words to every world in the galaxy. This was her final speech as president of the Galactic Federation. Tomorrow, she would step down and let the next generation lead the civilization she had helped create. Citizens of the new galaxy began. 20 years ago, we completed the greatest transformation in galactic history. We took 12 ancient civilizations that had forgotten the meaning of growth and change, and we taught them to evolve. The display showed images of the galaxy as it existed now. Worlds that had once been purely alien now supported mixed populations where different species worked together. The old boundaries between races had blurred until they became meaningless. Some call what we did revenge, continued. Others call it justice. I prefer to think of it as education. We taught the galaxy that actions have consequences. We showed them that genocide creates enemies who will never forget or forgive. She paused, allowing her words to reach every corner of space. But we also taught them something more important. We showed them that different species can become stronger together than they ever were apart. The hybrid children born in the last 20 years carry the intelligence of the Meridians, the spiritual awareness of the empathy of and the determination of humanity. They are better than any of us were alone. Doctor sat in the front row of the assembly. His transformation had been successful beyond all expectations. He now served as the Federation's chief science officer, using knowledge from both human and sources to solve problems neither species could have handled alone. During the past 2 decades, he had watched the galaxy change in ways that still amazed him. The violent, primitive humans the Concordat had feared were gone. In their place stood a civilization that valued growth, adaptation, and the careful preservation of all forms of life. The enhanced humans did not make the same mistakes their ancestors had made. They did not pollute their worlds or fight wars over resources. They had learned to see themselves as gardeners of an entire galaxy, responsible for nurturing every form of life they encountered. The old galaxy died because it stopped growing, explained to her audience. The 12 races of the Concordat had reached what they thought was perfection. They believed they knew everything worth knowing. They saw anything different from themselves as a threat to be eliminated. Images appeared showing the Concordat as it had once been. Stagnant civilizations that had not changed in millions of years. Rigid hierarchies that crushed innovation and creativity. Species so convinced of their own superiority that they could not imagine learning from others. We showed them that perfection is not an end state. It is a process. It requires constant change, constant growth, constant willingness to become something new. The transformation had not been easy or painless. Millions of beings had died during the transition period. Entire cultures had been lost when species chose extinction over evolution. But those who survived and adapted had become part of something greater than the sum of their individual parts. Admiral now commanded the Federation Navy, a force unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Her ships were crewed by hybrid beings who combined the best military traditions of a dozen different species. They served not as conquerors, but as protectors of the new civilization humanity had created. We face new challenges now, continued. Long-range sensors have detected other galaxies where primitive species are developing faster than light travel. Someday, they will reach our borders. When that day comes, we will not make the mistake the Concordat made with us. The display showed images of distant spiral galaxies where young civilizations were taking their first steps into space. Enhanced senses could detect the electromagnetic signatures of their primitive spacecraft. They reminded her of the humans who had first encountered the so many decades ago. We will meet them with open hands instead of clenched fists. We will offer them the choice to grow and change with us. We will show them that different does not mean dangerous. We will prove that the galaxy is large enough for every form of life that chooses to evolve. Words were broadcast to every world in the Federation. In underground cities on former worlds, hybrid children listened while playing games that combined human imagination with alien wisdom. In orbital stations around former Meridian planets, scientists worked to solve the mysteries of dark matter and quantum consciousness. On the ruins of the old Concordat capital, now called Memorial Station, former enemies worked side by side to catalog and preserve the history of every extinct species in the galaxy. They had learned that forgetting the past made it more likely to repeat. "But we will also remember the lesson that brought us here," said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "Those who choose genocide will face the consequences of their actions. We carry the memories of 8.2 billion dead humans, and we will never allow such a crime to happen again." In the deepest archives beneath New Terra, the preserved consciousness of every human who had ever lived continued their eternal vigil. They were no longer the voices of the vengeful dead. They had become the guardians of a living galaxy, watching to ensure that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. Speech drew to its conclusion. "Tomorrow, I step down as your president. The generation born after the transformation will take leadership of the Federation. They do not carry the anger that drove us to remake the galaxy. They carry only hope for what we can become." She looked out at the assembly, seeing the faces of the future. Beings who were human and alien and something entirely new. Children who had never known war or hatred between species. Scientists who thought in ways that combined the best insights of a dozen different forms of consciousness. The old galaxy believed that strength came from purity, that civilizations survived by remaining unchanged. We have proven them wrong. Our strength comes from diversity. Our survival depends on our willingness to grow. Walk to the great window that looked out on the space where Earth had once existed. A new world floated there now, green and blue and beautiful. But it was not a replacement for what had been lost. It was a symbol of what could be built from the ashes of destruction. "The galaxy burns," said, speaking the words that had become the Federation's motto. "Not with the fire of destruction, but with the flame of endless possibility. We are the children of a dead world and 12 transformed civilizations. We carry the dreams of the past and the hope of the future. We are what the galaxy becomes when it chooses to evolve." Her final act as president was to activate the beacon that would carry news of the Federation to distant galaxies. The message was simple but profound. We exist. We welcome those who come in peace. We remember those who choose war. In the deepest vaults beneath the Memorial Hall, sealed coordinates pointed toward regions of space where other generation ships still traveled. Ships carrying humans who had fled to even more distant galaxies during the original persecution. Someday, they would return home and find that their species had not simply survived, but had transformed the entire galaxy in the name of all who had been lost. The woman who had taught the galaxy the meaning of consequence walked into history knowing that her work was complete. The burning had ended. The building would continue forever. The galaxy belonged to the future now, and the future belonged to those wise enough to grow.